What we will do in this video is to take the quadratic formula in standard form and then solve for the letter x by completing the square. Now this is written up in our textbook, but I think if you see it worked out, may be a little more meaningful for you. Now the first thing we do to the quadratic formula, once it's in standard form and we want to solve by completing the square, is to take the c term and move that to the other side as a negative c. Take the c, move it to the other side, and then we have ax squared plus bx. Now the rule is, if the x squared has a term in front of it, we have to get rid of that term. And we're going to do so by dividing out every term by the a. So if there was a value for a, we're getting rid of it this way. Now here the a's cancel out, and we then get x squared plus bx over a equals a negative c over a. Now what we need to do is find what would be a binomial that when we squared it would become this expression, which would be a perfect square trinomial. But notice we're missing the c term here. So there is a technique to do that, and in starting to factor this, we're going to put an x here. This plus sign goes here. Now we have to take half of our b term, and the easy way to do that is just go half of our b term, which is b over a. Now this then becomes a b over 2a. Now that we found in our binomial what the second term is, to get our c term here we have to square it. So we're going to square this term and get b squared minus 4a squared. Just squaring this term to get that. Now if we have added this value to this side, we must add it to this side. Now here we have a situation where we have to, in a sense, subtract these. In order to do it, we must have a common denominator. So between a 4a squared and an a, our common denominator is 4a squared. So what must we multiply this a by? Again, it's a form of 1 in which it will make the denominator 4a squared. Well, 4a. 4a over 4a is 1. And now this denominator becomes this. So we now have common denominators, so we can put them all over our common denominator. So there we are. Now, to get rid of the exponent of 2, we're going to take the square root of all this, which just leaves us with the radicand. And on this side, we take plus or minus this square root. And we now notice that this in the denominator is a perfect square, which will become 2a when we take the square root of this. And we're left in our numerator with this. Now, we take this term and transpose it, just changing its sign from a positive on this side to a negative. And notice our denominators are the same already, so this will just become a negative b here over this, but we're putting it all over now, a common denominator. So after we transpose this, we have an x left all by itself, and it's a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, the quadratic formula. And we did that by starting with an equation in standard form, completing the square, bringing our c term over, getting rid of our a, finding what our missing term was to make this a perfect square trinomial, and then expanding that, factoring that to get this, taking the square root of both sides, and ending up with the quadratic formula. Now, anytime you have something in this form, by substituting the value of a, of b, and c into this formula, that will give you what x is. And generally, you're going to get two values because of the plus or minus. We'll find out in the next section if our item which is under the radicand, which is called the discriminant, becomes a 0, then you only get one answer because it's plus or minus 0. You get two answers, but it's the same. Okay, that'll wind this up.